The moment my own brother looked me dead in the eye and told me I deserved to lose everything I'd worked for, I knew my life had just split into two parts, before that dinner, and everything that came after. Standing there in my parents' living room, watching him nod along as his pregnant wife threatened to terminate her pregnancy unless I handed over the keys to my dream house, I realized that sometimes the people who share your blood are the quickest to drain it dry. I'm Harper, and what I'm about to tell you will make you question everything you think you know about family loyalty. Because this isn't just a story about greed or manipulation, it's about the moment I discovered that the people I'd spent 32 years loving were willing to destroy me the second they thought I had something they wanted. And it started with the biggest lie I'd ever been told. But let me back up, because you need to understand just how far I'd come to lose it all in one night. For 7 years, I lived like a monk. While my friends were out blowing money on weekend trips and designer clothes, I was eating canned beans in my cramped one-bedroom apartment, driving my Honda until it wheezed, and putting every spare dollar toward one single, burning goal, owning my own home. I'm a mobile app developer, and let me tell you, those 60-hour weeks debugging code and dealing with impossible clients nearly broke me more times than I can count. But every month, when I'd transfer another chunk of money into my house fund and watch that number grow, dollar by painful dollar, I reminded myself why I was doing this. I wanted something that was mine. Really mine. Not rented, not borrowed, not dependent on someone else's goodwill. Mine. I'd scroll through real estate websites during lunch breaks, imagining myself in those kitchens, those living rooms, those little backyards where I could plant something and know it would still be there next season. The dream kept me going through the hardest nights, through the loneliness, through the sacrifice. But here's the thing, I kept it quiet. Because experience had taught me that when my family knew I had money, they found ways to make it disappear. See, there's my younger brother Brandon. 30 years old, married to this woman Amber who makes everything about herself. Always has to be the center of attention, always dramatic, always treating Brandon like he's still a teenager she gets to boss around. And my parents? They just let her walk all over them like it's perfectly normal. I learned to keep my distance from Amber after their wedding disaster 2 years ago. My whole family expected me to pay for Brandon and Amber's entire wedding. $40,000. $40,000. Can you imagine? I'd been saving for my house for years, grinding through those brutal work weeks, and they wanted me to blow it all on their party. I gave them 10 grand, which I thought was incredibly generous. Amber completely lost it. She actually uninvited me from being a bridesmaid because I wasn't supportive enough of their love. My parents took their side. They didn't talk to me for months. Didn't even invite me to Christmas that year. Christmas. Over a wedding that wasn't even mine. That's when I made a rule for myself, keep financial stuff private. My parents have never been great with money. Dad worked construction until his back gave out. Mom did part-time retail. They're not bad people, but they've always lived paycheck to paycheck. And whenever I'd helped them before, which was plenty of times, they never paid me back. It was always next month or once things settled down. But next month never came. So when I finally started seriously house hunting, driving through neighborhoods on weekends, going to open houses, I kept it to myself. I must have looked at 50 places before I found the one. And oh my God, it was perfect. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, gorgeous kitchen, hardwood floors that gleamed in the afternoon light, and this little backyard that made my heart skip. Built in the 80s but maintained with obvious love. The neighborhood was quiet, young families, older couples, the kind of place where people actually wave to each other and kids ride bikes in the street without fear. The asking price was fair, and after all those years of sacrifice, I had enough saved to put down 25% instead of 20%. My offer got accepted on the first try. I couldn't believe it was actually happening. After years of planning and saving and dreaming, I was going to be a homeowner. The day I got those keys was honestly one of the best days of my life. I just stood there in the empty living room, holding them, thinking about how this was mine. Really, truly mine. I spent 2 weeks moving in, hiring movers for the big stuff but carrying box after box myself, each one feeling like a small victory. I bought new furniture, nothing crazy expensive, but stuff that actually fit the space properly. A real dining table, a decent couch, a bed frame that wasn't from IKEA. For the first time in my adult life, I felt like I was actually living instead of just surviving. The whole time, I didn't tell my family. I kept meaning to call them, but I was busy getting everything sorted out. Plus, honestly, I was enjoying having this thing that was just mine, that they couldn't have opinions about or make demands on. But my mom was getting suspicious. She kept asking questions about why I was always busy with house stuff when I supposedly lived in an apartment. So finally, about 3 weeks after I'd moved in, I called her. I didn't give her my address or anything, just told her I'd bought a house and was settling in. Her reaction was weird. There was this long pause, then she said, oh my, well, that's wonderful, honey. I'm so happy for you. But she didn't sound happy. She sounded surprised and maybe a little upset. Then she said, you should come to dinner this Saturday. We'd love to celebrate with you. I bought a nice bottle of wine and figured we'd have a family dinner where I could show them pictures and tell them about my new life. Saturday came and I drove over feeling pretty good about everything. When I pulled into the driveway, Brandon's car was already there. That was fine. I figured Mom had invited him and Amber to celebrate too. Mom opened the door before I could even knock. Harper, come in, come in. She seemed nervous, which was odd. She kept glancing back toward the living room like she was waiting for something. I barely made it through the front door when Amber appeared from the kitchen. The second she saw me, she threw her hands up and practically screamed, I'm pregnant. I stopped dead in my tracks. Of all the things I expected to hear that day, that wasn't one of them. Oh, wow. Congratulations, I managed to say, even though something felt off about the timing. Here I was, coming to celebrate my house, and suddenly Amber's dropping pregnancy news like a bomb. Thank you. Amber grabbed my arm and started talking a mile a minute. I found out 3 days ago. Can you believe it? I'm so excited I can barely think straight. We've already picked out names, Lily for a girl, Ben for a boy. Oh, and we're going to need so much space for the nursery and everything. Brandon appeared behind her, grinning like he'd won the lottery. Hey sis, crazy news, right? I handed my wine to Mom, who took it and set it on the dining table. That's when I noticed the table was already set with their good dishes, candles lit, the works. But this wasn't set up to celebrate my house purchase. This was clearly about Amber's pregnancy. We're celebrating the baby tonight, Mom confirmed. Amber told us the wonderful news earlier today. Through dinner, Amber kept talking about morning sickness and doctor appointments and baby gear. She was acting like she was the first woman in history to get pregnant. Brandon hung on every word like she was delivering the Sermon on the Mount. So Harper, Mom finally said when Amber paused for breath, tell us about this house you bought. I pulled out my phone and showed them the photos I'd taken. It's a 3-bedroom in Highland Heights. Got a great deal on it, inspection came back clean. I'm really happy with it. Amber grabbed my phone right out of my hands and started swiping through the pictures. Her whole mood changed as she looked at them. The excited smile disappeared and her face got darker with each photo. She shoved my phone back at me. This house should be ours. I laughed because I thought she was joking. What? I'm serious. Amber crossed her arms and stared at me with this entitled look. Brandon and I need this house more than you do. We're having a baby. I looked around the table. Mom and Dad were nodding. Brandon was nodding. They were all looking at me like this made perfect sense. I'm not giving you my house, I said slowly, like I was talking to children. Are you kidding me right now? Mom leaned forward with this patronizing expression. Harper, honey, Amber has a point. They're starting a family. They need space for the baby. You're single. So what if I'm single? It's my house. I saved for years to buy it. Brandon muttered something under his breath about me being a blue stocking who'd never get married anyway. That stung more than I expected it to. This is ridiculous, I said, standing up. I'm not having this conversation. That's when Amber completely lost it. She started screaming about how she was pregnant and needed space for the baby and didn't want to raise a child in their cramped apartment. She was crying and shouting at the same time, this horrible performance that made my skin crawl. "You don't deserve that house," she yelled, pointing at me like I was some kind of criminal. "You're selfish. All you care about is yourself." I grabbed my purse. "I'm leaving." "If you don't give us that house," Amber screamed, her voice reaching this hysterical pitch, "I'll get rid of this baby." Everyone went dead silent. Even I stopped moving toward the door. Did she just threaten to terminate her pregnancy to manipulate me into giving up my house? I expected Mom and Dad to tell her that was completely inappropriate. I expected Brandon to be horrified that his wife would say something like that about their unborn child. Instead, Brandon turned to me with this cold, threatening look and said, "If anything happens to my child because of your selfishness, Harper, that's on you." "Are you serious right now?" Mom started in on me with this disappointed tone. "You've driven a pregnant woman to desperation, Harper. This is what your stubbornness has caused." Dad nodded along like a bobblehead. "You need to do the right thing here and give them the house." I couldn't listen to another word. I literally ran out of that house and drove home shaking, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. My phone started blowing up before I even got back. Text after text from Mom, Dad, and Brandon calling me cruel and heartless. Amber sent me a long message saying she was so upset she might lose the baby and it would be all my fault. They were using an unborn child as blackmail to steal my house. My own family. I blocked all their numbers and blocked them on social media. I needed time to think without them harassing me constantly. For the next few weeks, it was quiet. I threw myself into work and tried not to think about the mess. I decided to go ahead with my housewarming party anyway. I invited some colleagues, close friends, and my cousins Samantha and Alex. They'd always been cool and stayed out of family drama. The party was going great. Good food, good company, everyone admiring the house and congratulating me. I was finally starting to feel like myself again, laughing with friends in my beautiful living room, feeling proud of what I'd accomplished. Then my front door basically exploded open. Mom, Dad, Brandon, and Amber stormed into my living room like they owned the place. "How did you find my address?" I demanded, my heart pounding. Amber immediately started her performance again, pressing her hand to her stomach and yelling about how this house belonged to her and her baby. But I noticed something different this time. She wasn't threatening to terminate the pregnancy anymore. She was being more careful with her words since there were strangers here. "You need to leave," I told them, my voice shaking with rage. "All of you, right now." Amber tried to flip my dining table and throw all the dishes on the floor. Thank God my colleague Luke grabbed her arms before she could destroy everything. Brandon got in Luke's face like he wanted to fight him. "Don't touch my wife. Get out of my house." I screamed. It took several of us to get them out of my house, but by then the party was ruined. My guests left pretty quickly after that scene. I was mortified, standing in my living room trying to explain to people I respected that my family had just invaded my home and tried to destroy my property. The next morning, I woke up to find Amber had started a Facebook campaign against me. She was posting pictures of empty cribs and baby strollers with captions like "Your nephew could be sleeping here and this is what Harper is taking away from her family." It was sick. She was using pregnancy photos to guilt-trip me and anyone who might see her posts. I'd had enough. I sent her one final message: "I will never give you my house. If you don't stop harassing me immediately, I'm filing a restraining order for harassment and extortion. This is your only warning." She stopped posting after that. For 2 whole weeks, everything was quiet. I actually started to relax and think maybe they'd finally gotten the message. Then on a Saturday morning, someone started pounding on my front door like they were trying to break it down. I looked through the peephole and saw Brandon standing there. His face was red and he looked absolutely furious. I didn't open the door. "Harper," he shouted. "Open this door right now." "Go away, Brandon. You killed my baby," he screamed, his voice cracking. "Amber had a miscarriage and it's all your fault." I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. Even through all this insanity, the thought of losing a baby was horrible. Brandon kept yelling through the door, calling me every name in the book. He blamed me for everything. Said I was a monster. Said the family was done with me forever. When he finally left, I collapsed on my couch and cried. Even knowing how manipulative Amber was, even knowing they'd been trying to steal my house, I felt guilty. What if the stress really had caused a miscarriage? What if I was partially responsible? I couldn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about that baby and wondering if I could have handled things differently. Sunday morning, I called my friend Katie. She'd been out of town during my housewarming party, but she knew Amber from college. If anyone would give me an honest perspective, it would be Katie. Katie, I need to talk to someone. Can you come over? Of course. What's wrong? You sound terrible. I told her everything. The house demands, the pregnancy announcement, the threats, the miscarriage. Katie listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "There's something I need to show you. I'll be there in an hour." When Katie arrived, she looked really serious. She sat down across from me and pulled out her phone. "Harper, I've been going back and forth about whether to show you this, but after what you just told me, I can't keep quiet anymore." She opened her text messages and showed me a conversation with Amber from a few days ago. I read the first message and my blood turned cold. Amber had written, "LMAO, this is working perfectly. Harper actually thinks I'm pregnant. I can't believe how gullible she is." Katie had responded, "Wait, what? You're not pregnant?" "Of course not. But if I can convince her family I am, they'll pressure her to give us that house. Brandon's been wanting to move out of our apartment forever. And when I saw those house photos, I knew we had to have it." "Amber, this is insane. You can't fake a pregnancy. Watch me. I already told Brandon's parents about the miscarriage I'm going to have. They're going to blame Harper completely. She'll feel so guilty she'll hand over the house keys." "You made up a miscarriage too?" "Girl, I am committed to this plan. By next month, we'll be living in that house, and Harper will be paying the mortgage." I stared at the phone screen in complete shock. She had planned all of this. Every single detail. Katie nodded grimly. "There's more." She scrolled down to show me more messages where Amber talked about her performance at the dinner, how easy it was to manipulate Brandon and his parents, and how she was going to cry her eyes out when she told everyone about the fake miscarriage. "Can you send these to me?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Already done." I screenshotted everything and sent it to your email. I felt angry and relieved and disgusted all at the same time. Angry that my own family had chosen to believe this woman over me. Relieved that I wasn't actually responsible for a miscarriage. Disgusted that someone would fake a pregnancy and miscarriage just to steal a house. After Katie left, I spent the rest of the day thinking about what I was going to say. By the time I drove to my parents' house after work on Monday, I knew exactly how this was going to go down. Brandon's car was in the driveway, which was perfect. I wanted all of them there for this. Mom opened the door and immediately started yelling at me. "How dare you show your face here after what you've done?" I walked past her into the living room where Dad, Brandon, and Amber were sitting. Amber was wearing all black like she was in mourning. She had tissues in her hands and her eyes were red like she'd been crying for hours. "You have some nerve coming here," Dad said, not even looking at me. Brandon stood up, his face twisted with grief and rage. "Get out of my parents' house." Amber started crying. "I can't even look at her. She killed my baby." "Everyone, shut up and listen," I said, pulling out my phone. "I have something to show you." I held up the screenshots. I have proof that Amber was never pregnant. The room went dead silent. Amber's face went completely white. "That's impossible," Mom said, but she was already walking over to look at my phone. Brandon grabbed the phone from Mom's hands and started reading. His expression changed with every line, confusion turning to horror turning to rage. "What is this?" he asked Amber, his voice barely controlled. "She's lying." Amber jumped up, her performance falling apart. "She made those up to hurt me." "Then you won't mind if I ask to see the hospital paperwork from your miscarriage," I said calmly. Amber's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Brandon was still reading the messages. "Amber, did you make this up?" She started crying harder, but not the fake tears from before. These looked real, desperate. I wanted us to have a house, she screamed, all pretense gone. We deserve it more than she does. She's just going to live there alone like some old spinster. The room exploded. Dad started yelling at Amber. Mom was asking Brandon if he knew about this. Brandon was staring at his wife like he'd never seen her before. I turned to my parents. You chose her lies over your own daughter. You supported her when she tried to steal from me. I'm done with all of you. I walked out of that house and haven't been back since. A week after I exposed Amber's lies, my parents showed up at my door. I saw them through the peephole and honestly, they looked terrible. Mom had bags under her eyes and Dad seemed like he'd aged 10 years. I didn't want to let them in, but Mom called through the door. Harper, please. We need to apologize. I opened the door but didn't invite them inside. What do you want? We were wrong, Dad said immediately. Completely wrong. We should have believed you from the start. Mom was crying. We're so sorry, honey. We got caught up in Amber's manipulation and we failed you as parents. You didn't just fail me, I said, my voice steady and cold. You actively supported someone who was trying to steal my house. You told me I was selfish and cruel for not giving up something I worked years to buy. We know, Mom said. There's no excuse for what we did. Dad cleared his throat. Brandon is talking about divorce. He's been going to therapy, trying to figure out how he got so mixed up in all this. Good for him, I guess. Amber has been going to therapy too, Mom added. She seems to be getting help for her issues. I almost laughed. Her issues? She faked a pregnancy and threatened to fake an abortion to steal my house. That's not issues. That's criminal behavior. You're right, Dad said quietly. We know you probably can't forgive us, but we had to try to apologize. I'm not ready to forgive anyone yet, I told them. You all showed me exactly who you really are when you thought I had something you wanted. They left after that, and I went back inside to my house. My house that I bought with my own money, that I almost lost to my own family's greed and manipulation. That was 4 months ago. I haven't spoken to any of them since. Katie keeps me updated on the family drama. Apparently Brandon did file for divorce, but then they decided to try counseling instead. Amber has been posting a lot of mental health awareness stuff on social media and talking about taking responsibility for past mistakes. She never mentions me or the house situation directly, but I know that's what she's referring to. My parents have tried calling a few times, but I don't answer. They've sent cards for my birthday and holidays, but I throw them away without reading them. Brandon sent me one text apologizing, but I deleted it without responding. The thing is, I'm not even that angry anymore. I'm just done. The whole experience showed me that my family saw me as a bank account, not as a person. When they thought I had something they wanted, they were willing to destroy me to get it. Work is going great. I got promoted to senior developer last month, which came with a nice raise. I've been putting the extra money toward paying off my mortgage early. At this rate, I'll own my house free and clear in 12 years instead of 30. I've made new friends through work and neighbors. Turns out when you're not constantly dealing with family drama, you have a lot more energy for building healthy relationships. My house is exactly what I dreamed it would be. I painted the spare bedrooms, one's now a home office and the other's a guest room for friends who actually deserve my hospitality. I planted flowers in the backyard and bought a nice patio set. I host dinner parties sometimes, and my friends always comment on how peaceful and welcoming the space feels. The neighborhood is great too. The family next door has 2 kids who sometimes ask me to help with their math homework. The couple across the street invites me to their barbecues. It's the kind of community I always wanted to be part of. Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever reconcile with my family. Katie thinks I should at least talk to my parents since they did apologize. But here's the thing, an apology doesn't undo the damage they did. They were willing to support someone who was literally trying to rob me. They chose a manipulative liar over their own daughter. Maybe someday I'll be ready to have a relationship with them again. Maybe Brandon will get his life together and realize how toxic Amber was. Maybe my parents will truly understand why what they did was so hurtful. But I'm not holding my breath. The funny part is that Amber thought she was so clever with her fake pregnancy scheme. She probably figured that even if she got caught eventually, the family would forgive her and she'd still end up with some kind of relationship with everyone. But her plan backfired spectacularly. Brandon is questioning everything about their marriage. My parents are horrified that they supported her. And I'm completely out of their lives. She destroyed her own relationships trying to steal mine. I still get angry sometimes when I think about how close they came to succeeding. If Katie hadn't shown me those text messages, I might have actually felt guilty enough to give them money or help with a house down payment. The manipulation was that effective. But mostly, I feel grateful that I found out who they really were before I wasted any more years trying to maintain relationships that were fundamentally one-sided. My house is my sanctuary now. When I come home from work and unlock my front door, I feel nothing but peace. No family drama, no manipulation, no demands for money I earned through my own hard work. Just me, my career, my real friends, and the home I built for myself. Thanks for listening, and if you liked this story, share it with others who might need to hear it, and don't forget to comment and subscribe for more stories about finding the strength to walk away from toxic people, even when they're family. Because sometimes the people who claim to love us most are the ones who show us exactly what we're worth to them when they think we have something they want. Family isn't always blood, it's the people who stand by you when the world falls apart, not the ones trying to tear it down.